$327,000 a year. And taking that 1 mil away will reduce it by approximately $85,000 per year. And we guesstimate that a home with a taxable value of approximately $100,000 would save about $100. Come on, Andrew, ask the question.
Silent listening.
Yeah. Right. I think I've made this statement in the past that we're continually trying to look at areas that we can save money and reduce the cost to the residents without doing something drastic and I'll use the word stupid, but I don't like to use that word. We would have to come back to the residents and try to take something back. So we're gonna take this cautious approach, knowing that this right here is something that we can cut. It's still gonna fund that particular line item, which can only be used for certain items, for certain things anyways. And the one thing that we did use that line item for was the recent stormwater separation, the stormwater improvement program that cost us approximately $1 million. So that money's been accumulating over the years. And it will continue to accumulate because we have no other projects on that magnitude coming up.
During the regular meeting, we're just going to make a proposal to adopt.
Yes.
Okay, so the public hearing is over.
Any questions from the table? From the audience? Being done, we'll close the public hearing on the general operating, and we'll open the public hearing on the fire millage, which currently is levied at 3 mills.
The village rate hasn't changed in a while.
For the fire?
Right.
No. That's what was voted on, I think, I don't recall when that was approved by the voters. And I'm not sure if it was a max of 3 mills. Yeah, I think it was a max of 3 mills. And I think the full 3 has been levied all along.
So there's really no leverage. It's maxed at 3 mils and that's
Yes.
what we get. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm understanding correctly, that's status quo then, 3, it's always been 3 and it's maintaining 3,
Yes. Yes.
no change.
And that's pretty much the full funding of the fire department.
Through that.
Yeah. Water General Fund has taken on some of their liabilities, such as their portion of the rent and their portion of
Fire hydrants.
the fire hydrants. Yeah. Because they, according to ordinance, they should pay a hydrant fee for maintenance of the hydrants.
Oh, right.
Can we change that? Like, in the DPW number?
DPW does.
Yeah, we're just moving.
Any questions on the fire millage? I am sleepy, and you guys are making me sleepier.
You can go home before 8:45.
Yeah, we moved this along.
You all
Right.
can make it 7:30.
Oh, Lord. I'm looking out the window, he's carrying stuff.
Me too. Lord have mercy. It's not a
There goes our
struggle.
7:30.
I know.
Yeah. When that guy down lower.
You're about to get woken up.
Oh, God.
Goes your 8:30. Wait, there goes your 9:30.
You can't turn it.
And your 10.
Yeah, do not let us go.
Well, we have to add an agenda item for the village, vote on the village.
Yes,
Yeah, it's on.
yes, there's gonna be an agenda. I have a list of things that somehow got missed,
Okay.
and there's, I should have just ran topics for everybody, so you can see what needs to be added. And there's some new business, unfinished business that somehow we didn't get on the agenda.
So the fire hearing is closed?
I'm sorry.
Fire hearing is closed?
If there's no questions, then we're closing we'll close the public hearing on the fire millage. We got about 12 minutes to do it. In 12 minutes. We'll call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll, please.
Trustee Crowley.
Here.
Trustee Niasen.
Here.
Trustee Lee.
Here.
Trustee Chandler.
Here.
Trustee Cragmore. Trustee Mizia.
Here.
Trustee Gilbert.
Here.
Attorney McGrail.
Here.
Treasurer Woodzak. Here. Clerk Burr.
Approval of agenda. The agenda is a hot mess, I must say. And I have passed out at the table a revised agenda. We added a couple things, adoption of the millage, and we moved our ISO results up. And then everything else will fall in place as far as the medical marijuana, the fireworks, the yo-and-yo engagement letter, the 47-acre parcel, and the sidewalk repair. Under unfinished business, we're adding village manager. And under new business, we're adding a planning appointment and just a brief conversation on our bond refinancing.
Motion
Is that
to,
acceptable?
motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Been probably moved and supported that we approve the agenda as amended. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carried. The public hearing was held on the operating millage and the fire millage. Item 4, public comment on the agenda.
I'm Robert Pennell, and I live here in the village of New Haven. My one question is, well, I actually have two questions. One question is on the sale of the property, and I wonder if that's attached to a plan, since it's village-owned property, what's going to happen with that property once it's sold, is there contingencies on it, or, you know, I looked up the builder, and they look like a very reputable company. If they're building what they're currently build, and I couldn't find a negative post about them. I don't know if anybody else has had any luck with that, but they look like a good company. But I'd like to know what they're going to put there, and that it adds to another level of living here in the village for larger families that they don't move away. And then the other thing is the medical marijuana. Just want to say I and appreciate the decision that the board made, or the committee made, and I hope you go with the recommendation not to allow it here in the village of New Haven. I honestly don't have no trouble with it for people that need it, but I just don't think it's the place is here. So, thank you very much, you guys have a great night.
Thank you. Any other?
Good evening, Mr. President, trustee, council members. John Hinkie on behalf of NHA Holdings in Delta One. Many of you have seen me a number of times with respect to the medical marijuana issue. President Dilbert, council members. Given we'd like to have the opportunity to present to the entire council. We've been in front of the Medical Marijuana Committee a number of times with respect to a proposal. We understand that possibly not all of the information with respect to those committee meetings has reached all of the trustees as well as city council, and when that discussion comes up, we'd like the opportunity to provide the trustees with some more information. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Hello, I'm Patty Thomas. I am a resident of the village. I'm a medical marijuana patient, and I've been a stoner for 47 years. On the Medical Marijuana Research Committee, no offense, but in my opinion, it was nothing short of a farce. There was 3 of the members on the panel that had such preconceived notions that it didn't matter, and there was a no vote and nothing to back it up. We didn't see any statistics against it. I don't understand. To me, it insulted my intelligence. I myself, as a resident, went along Roselle, asked all those businesses along the way what was happening, told them what was happening. There was talk of medical marijuana facility. Not one of them had a problem with it. Not one of them. They hadn't even heard about this. They thought it was all tabled. They didn't realize it was still alive. Posts from the online groups, I've been accused of smoking my brains out, being from a rabidly pro-marijuana group. Well, okay, I'll give you that one. My behavior in radical ways turn people away. I must be burning one. And this brought my mom to mind, just because everyone else is doing it. I was called a conspiracy theorist, which actually I am. I bought into the theory 40 years ago that there were cures for cancer, that the government was hiding it, and that Big Pharma was killing us. And boom, we're there. And now everybody wants to get back to the organic and the natural, and they're just dismissing it without even looking at it. And with the opioid crisis, it's a viable method of withdrawing from that. And let's face it, those people are in the minority because over 2/3 of the United States wants it legalized. It is my medicine. Yeah, it started out being my get high, but it's my medicine now. And I deserve a right to be able to buy it in a clean, safe place, and why not in my own community? When I think of the money, I mean, let's think over the years, it's been a moneymaker. I mean, it made the cartels millions of dollars. Why not get some of that? It's a little different business than we're used to. Their protocol is a little different than the federal government, but the nature of the business kind of, you should know that. People should know that. And if anybody researched it, you know that. It's medicinal. The world, as a matter of fact, last night I just read an article by the World Health Organization. Not the FDA, the World Health Organization. It shouldn't even be on the schedule. It's medicinal. Countries are legalizing it. States are legalizing it, even after all the wars we've waged on it. It is medicine. When a public official tells me we don't need it, I kind of got to question that. Why they just dismiss it single-handedly without thinking of the, it's not maybe not just a money factor, but to turn down the processing center or the provisionary center, that processing center alone with the medical market could open that avenue for a bottling company, a bakery. I mean, there's a myriad of uses it could be used for. And to turn that down, just haphazardly just say, no, I don't think they were researched. We don't need it. I don't know what community doesn't need money.
Patty, your time's up.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Kyle Kappa. Just want to make a real quick comment. I know you're taking action on the medical marijuana stuff tonight. I had the pleasure of sitting in a few committee meetings, and I wanted to, just recognize the effort of that committee and I think the success of the committee. It was a good example of how to attack an issue in the community that needs extra research and support and stuff like that. It was a good interaction from council members and community members, and it was I think it was a good strategy for this sort of issue. That being said, you should take your decision tonight and the committee's recommendation very seriously, because that committee was tasked with something. We asked these people to volunteer to go outside their normal daily lives or their normal council responsibilities and volunteer their time to do tons and tons of research, hours and hours of research. They sat up here and listened to tons of presentations, community comments. It was a lot of work for just a volunteer effort. And then after the fact, they sat and were just blasted on social media by Trustee Vanderhook relentlessly over and over again. You mentioned how the committee didn't do their research. They didn't do their research. How could they do this? They couldn't have possibly done their research. That's not that sort of way you get people to participate on committees. We're asking volunteers from the community to do stuff like that for us. We can't bash them like that. We should be thanking them for all their effort, not criticizing their efforts, thanking them for their efforts, and we should take their decision very seriously. That's all.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments on the agenda? Seeing none, approval of minutes, March 13th meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes from the March 13th council meeting.
Support.
Been properly moved and supported that the minutes of March 13th be approved. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
It's been properly moved and supported that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Capoli?
Yes.
Trustee Madison?
Yes.
Trustee B?
Yes.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Uziak?
Yes.
Trustee Kreidler?
Yes.
President Gilbert?
Yes. President items. We will start with item A, the general operating millage. We held a public hearing at 6:30 to adopt the operating millage for the village of New Haven. In the past, we have levied approximately 13.75 mills. And the budget that was presented reduced that by 1 mil. So we are proposing that we adopt the millage rate of 12.75 mils for 2018.
So moved.
It's in order.
So
Okay.
Support.
Been properly moved and supported that the proposed millage for 2018 in the amount of 12.75 mils be adopted. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee B?
Yes.
Trustee Madison?
Yes.
Trustee Capoli?
Yes.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Uziak?
Yes.
Trustee Kreidler?
Yes.
President Gilbert?
Yes. We also conducted a public hearing for the fire millage. We currently levy 3 mills for fire protection. That is that's where they get their whole budget. And we are proposing that we maintain that 3 mills for the upcoming year.
Motion to adopt the special assessment fire village.
Second.
Been properly moved and supported that we adopt the special assessment fire millage. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Capoli?
Yes.
Trustee Madison?
Yes.
Trustee B?
Yes.
Trustee Uziak?
Yes.
Trustee Kreidler?
Yes.
President Gilbert?
Yes. Item C is our ISO inspection results. And you all received the cover letter, and I think you may have received the whole report. And this is something that is conducted, I think we're going to probably have it conducted more often. I think the last time this was done, chief, assistant chief, was 10 years ago. And this report has a bearing on your homeowner's fire insurance. And with that being said, we did quite well. When you look at the summary, our rating was pretty good in a lot of areas. And there's some areas that we are not very good at, and some of it is out of our control in an area that we may not have hydrants in those particular areas. But when it's all said and done, we truly believe that sometime after July, when you start getting your fire insurance premium, take a look at it. Your fire insurance should go down on your house. And if it doesn't, then you contact your agent. Okay, now, not all carriers, look at this as the gospel, but at least you got something to argue with. Okay? And with that, I'm going to invite the chief and the assistant chief up, and if you have any questions as to how this was arrived at, and some of the things that they looked at when they came out to visit, these are the two gentlemen who can better answer.
Well, if you got about 2 days, I'll explain it all.
No.
No, we're not going to go that far.
You want to
Well, Assistant Chief Steer did a lot of this work. I gave him credit for most of it. I helped him a little bit, but he did a lot of it. Without going through the whole thing, there's some places, we'd like to invite him back out in a couple of years, because there's some places that we've already started to make some improvements, like our fire inspections, the water flow testing, we should do more often, we can do that before they come again. And we're hoping that it'll lower even more. We went from a 6 to a 5. There's very few communities that have a 2. I think there's only one that has a 1. And they're all, but there's a lot of different things in I'll let him explain, I'll let him answer any questions, because like I said, he was more involved in this than I was.
No questions? Any questions?
Just for information, say the purchase of a new truck, it came into play.
We did.
Absolutely. If you look at the credit for engine companies, we got a 5.376. You really can't get much better than that. Same for the radios, credit for communications, 9.83 out of 10. It's phenomenal. A lot of it has to do with the county. We use county for all of our dispatching, all of our radio communications go through them, but it also takes into consideration the age, the software of our communication equipment. So that came into play. Because we bought the new engine, if you see it says credit for reserve pumper. Because of the new engine, we were able to establish our oldest engine, which is about 30 years old now, to a status of a reserve. We got 0.21 out of 0.5, which is really good. The only way to make that go up is to keep putting trucks in reserve, but we're good. Pumper capacity, if you notice, it says 2.5 out of 3. Because of that new engine, bigger pump, it gave us a better credit. Credit for ladder service, we got 1.54 out of 4. They gave us credit for ladder service because there is in Baltimore and Chesterfield within, within, I think they're within 5 miles. So they didn't give us credit. They're an automatic response to a large fire. Reserve ladder trucks, obviously, we got 0. Deployment analysis, company personnel, we can try to do a little bit better on that. Training, you notice that's pretty low, 2.53 out of 9. It requires us to do 18 hours a month. We do 8. We run it every week. We run 2 hours every week. The only way to do that is if we start running running a Saturday class for 8 hours. And unfortunately, in our paid off department, it's just not feasible. We're going to try to see what we can do to get some more in on that. Company personnel, we're really low on our staffing right now. We're losing 2 more in a couple weeks. That is a pretty good concern. It's 4.3 out of 15. So we're going to try to come up with something to make those numbers a little better. And then operational considerations, we got 2 up 2. And then credit for the hydrants, 3 out of 3. Flow testing, we got 3.6.
What does that mean?
Age of the system. So it's a fairly, so when this was done 10 years ago, we had the old system. It was a really bad rating. So we got the new system, bigger mains, newer hydrants.
Better water flow.
Better water flow. So working with the water department, I thank Superintendent Gilbert for all of his help. Supply system, 20.9 out of 30, which is pretty good. The section over on Moselle, 26, no hydrants. So they do take that into consideration. So a total of 27.13 out of 40, which is good. So we went, said from a 6 to a 5. We're only roughly 4, what they call credit points away from a level 4. We're going to strive to get to there as best as we can. With your guys' help, we absolutely can make this happen. And a level 4, there's not too many level 4s out there right now, especially for a paid on call department like we are. So even at paid on call, it being a level 5, which is phenomenal. New Baltimore right now is a level 5. They have full-time staff. They have a big ladder truck. So considering we did very well, there's some room for improvement, and we're going to get on that.
Well, I talked want to spend $750,000 to buy us a ladder truck, I mean, you can go over tonight. I'm just kidding you. It's not practical, but we have access to other agencies which do have them. At some point, I don't know if this will ever happen in my career, but at some point, I'd like to look into a joint use ladder that Lennox, us, Ray, maybe Richmond, because they don't have one anymore because they got run into, but that's something in the future. It's not going to affect us right away. But like you said, unless you want to approve it, $750,000, I don't think that's going to happen, right, sir?
We are very active in writing for FEMA grants and federal grants. Unfortunately, as of this afternoon, we did receive our turn down letter today for the grant we put in. I think it was $105,000. We'll continue to keep writing for them, but we are actively seeking grants as best we can.
Any questions?
Yeah, I was looking at, the one that jumped out in front of me was the training, and you said the only limitation to that is the time involved.
Yeah,
Do that, you
so
said it's
because
adequate.
we're a bail and call department, I can't come and ask these guys to train 4 hours. I have to get off work every day in order to, get this working. This goes back to staffing, and if we had proper or increased staffing, while they're here during the day, they train. And they train for so many hours a day, and that'll count for that. Like I said, they want 18 hours, and it's really hard for us to, as a paid on-call department, everybody has a full-time job. They don't get home until 5 o'clock. We hold
Family,
trainings.
sports, et cetera, et cetera.
We hold trainings every Thursday, every week.
It's 2 to 3 hours every week.
And it's hard for us to be able to maintain that as a paid on-call department.
Yeah, we have training on Thursday in the morning for the people that work afternoons, and then we have training at night for the people that work during the day. But it's not enough by their standard. They're trained in every aspect that they need to be trained in, but by this organization's standards, it's not enough hours. I'm not sure what we do about that.
For the supply system, you mentioned that there's no hydrants along Roselle.
Yeah, that cost us a couple points.
Yeah. Is it mostly because there's not, the water and sewer isn't ran down?
There's no hydrants, there's no water.
There's no water supply, you have to tank it in. Yeah, all from.
And we do actually do quite a few fires in that corner. And that's what we do. We bring in big tanker trucks from the area, and that's how we fight the fire there.
Any others?
I guess the only other question I have, I responded to your email about with the ISO rating. I thought the report was really interesting to read through and understand how we got the scores. First off, thank you guys. I think all the residents in the village should be really proud of what you guys are doing and upping the score and hopefully lowering our homeowners insurance.
Lower a little bit more too.
Yeah.
In the next couple of years, we're hoping to lower it a little bit more.
I guess my question would be, from a council standpoint, what more can we help with that can, is there something bang for the buck that we could do that?
I'm going to have to go back to the staffing aspect of it. We're desperately low on firefighters right now.
I've given the assistant chief and the chief a challenge. And I know the assistant chief was doing some inquiring today. So we're having this discussion, what we can do and how we can make it happen to put them in a better position to, as far as staffing and retaining and training and all those things that come into play.
We'll call them.
Staffing is.
I'm sure they'll be coming back to us with a formal proposal.
So staffing is our major, and downfall is the regular. It comes up to that. That is a huge point loss that we lost in that time. And then, staffing goes on training, goes on, so it's kind of a snowball effect, but
Any part-paid department or volunteer or however they want to call it, department, always has staffing problems, especially during the day, because most people have a job during the day. So luckily, because I'm retired from somewhere else, I'm here a lot during the day. He's here a lot during the day, even though it costs him babysitting money. But at some point, we're gonna have to do something about that. We have a couple of plans we want to present to you, but not tonight, obviously, but I think the people want to get on about the marijuana thing, so I think we'll leave it.
To give you an overview, New Haven is the only department in the area, north 26 mile, we paid on call, if you want to call it part-time, or that doesn't have some sort of full-time staff. Richmond, up until just a couple weeks ago, they're actually looking to do a full-time staff as well. So we do well for what we have now, but, at our growth rate, we're going to do something. And
Because our following keeps going up, so our staff is, so, like I said, we have some proposals we'll present another time.
There was a stat that you had shared with me the other day, per mile, how many calls per mile?
so we do, I don't want to use roundabout number, 650 calls for 2.5 square miles. What those numbers are exactly, for our 2.5 square miles, we do 235 calls per mile. You go to Sterling Heights that does 5,000 calls, it's 135 per mile. So consider how small we are, we're very busy, with inspections and calls, and but that is I thought that was kind of an interesting stat.
I noticed you guys are already at 170 for the year.
Correct. And that's, Marker, that was at the end of March, so.
And off the subject a little, don't forget this Sunday is our pancake breakfast where we raise money for scholarships and stuff like that. And we'd be glad to have everybody come out. Whether you approve the marijuana thing or not, that I'd still like everybody to come out. It's a good time. The food is decent and it's by donation, so.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. Item B, the medical marijuana recommendations. And I put this on the agenda because we have yet to either accept, reject, or just ignore the recommendation of the committee. And so that's why I was at it. And we don't have to do nothing. Or we can formally accept it, we can formally reject it, or we can stand pat.
Should the results be formally presented?
I'm sorry?
Should the results be formally presented maybe by the chair?
I would think they probably should be.
Okay, the Medical Marijuana Committee met 4 times. The last time was March 1st of this year. After the committee members were presented with information, presentations by prospective business owners, residents, representatives from the Sheriff's Department, our own Fire Department, and a representative from the Planning Commission. The vote was taken on the final night, and the recommendation to council by the committee was for the safety compliance facility, 4 no votes, 3 yes votes. For the marijuana grow facility, 4 no votes, 3 yes votes. For the provisioning centers, 4 no votes, 3 yes votes. For the secure transport facility, 4 no votes, 3 yes votes. And finally, for the processing facility, 4 no votes and 3 yes votes. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Andrew Osterholm, Andy Rosick, okay, Heather Mitchell, and Kevin Smith for taking time out of their busy schedules to come to the committee meetings, do their homework, and listen to what was presented. It's always great when the residents step up and engage in what's going on in the village. So thanks again.
I'd like to point of clarification. It was actually specifically said, it was specifically articulated at the video. It's recorded, it's public available, you can find it on YouTube. I have it right to the minute, or right to the second, I can hit play. It was specifically stated that it was not a recommendation to council in the formal sense. It was, and I can hit play, we can put the mic up to it. It was specifically stated that these would just be expressed as the opinions of the members of council, but not necessarily as a formal recommendation. I can hit play.
So you're saying it was just...
It was to pass along the opinions of the council members in
Of the committee.
support or, yes.
And all 5 issues was a 4-3 against. Am I correct in?
Right.
At this time, I will allow any questions from the table. If you have any questions of the committee members, or if you have any thoughts from the table,
I have a statement I would like to read, but I can wait till
you have a what that you would like to
the
read?
statement, prepared statement.
Yes, fine.
The 4-3 votes by New Haven's Medical Marijuana Committee, which concluded that a majority of committee members were not in support of bringing such facilities to the village, was disappointing and frustrating to me in many ways. But to me, the lion's share of this frustration had little to do with the actual result of the vote itself, and everything to do with how the naysaying committee members, in my opinion, appeared to have reached their decisions. Had an abundance of actual facts and data been presented, which legitimately countered the facts and data that was brought forth in support of the issue, I absolutely 100% would have had no problem with the fact the committee voted. Indeed, I myself would have had no problem voting no to all 5 facility types. But that simply was not the case. The nay voting side ignored mountains of facts and data from professionals far more experts in their fields than we are. Economists, lawyers, law enforcement, higher academic institutions, decades-old reputable polling firms, real estate professionals, experienced elected officials from communities with years of experience with medical marijuana facilities. Time and time again, facts from these credible sources handily rebutted the unfounded fears and weighed heavily in favor of a now strongly regulated and scrutinized responsible industry that has the ability to bring jobs, development, and a significant revenue flow to the village. A conservative estimate of $100,000 a year revenue was offered to the community for just one proposed joint venture, if allowed by the ordinance. $100,000 a year for discrete, professionally constructed, new-built facilities, which would in all likelihood be limited to the vacant industrial zones of our community and offer dozens of jobs to the area. This was written off as not much by one of the nay voters. Rather, it was stigmas, in my opinion, it was stigmas, fallacies of false dichotomy and hyperbole, thoroughly debunked phobias based on unsubstantiated conjecture and extrapolation, and peer pressure from closed-minded echo chambers that appeared to carry the day. Very little, if any, relevant data was ever presented to the committee which conclusively gave cause for concern in regards to permitting the industry in our community. Time and time again, the insinuation was made that if the industry were to come to the village, home prices would plummet and new home development would come to a screeching halt. In more than 6 months' time, no evidence was offered to support this. References were made as to other Michigan municipalities being embroiled in medical marijuana lawsuits. However, upon even an initial glance at each of these lawsuits, anyone who bothered to actually read about these lawsuits could see that they were based on pre-2016 state law circumstances and had absolutely no similarities in regards to the nature and circumstances that the village would have in place. The purpose of the committee, as established in June of 2017, was, and I quote, to investigate and share publicly the pros and cons of permitting with regulation medical marijuana facilities within the village. Nowhere in that stated purpose does it say to concede to peer pressure for from small but vocal echo chambers on social media of like-minded friends and neighbors. The committee was tasked with looking past all of this, looking past all the perceived stigmas and rumors and feelings, and was supposed to be on a fact-finding mission for hard evidence as to whether this industry would be beneficial or detrimental to the community. In my opinion, the majority of the members of this community did exactly the opposite and wasted more than 6 months' time doing so. Again, I say, the stance of nay voting committee members was not my biggest frustration at the conclusion of our meetings. Rather, it is my sincere belief that their decisions were reached in all the wrong ways. It is my opinion that the Medical Marijuana Committee was not only a waste of time, but a great disservice to those who truly desired an unbiased and fact-based conclusion to this issue in our community.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Then I'm going to take the opportunity to thank the committee members. I personally made those appointments, and I took the opportunity to choose 3 that were openly pro and 3 that were against it. And I put in place one person that I thought was neutral. And personally, I think the committee did a good job. And this is what committees are supposed to do. Gather the facts, and how they gather them, I think is their responsibility, and as long as they can lay down at night and go to sleep, how they gather them and how they come to certain conclusions, that's what it's all about. We're different, we all have opinions, and I think this committee did what it was tasked to do. And on a more personal note, and I won't get up on a soapbox, but I don't think anybody in this room has lived here longer than me. And I'm 62 years old. And I've seen this community be stigmatized for a lot of different things that were never true. You know, back in the 70s as a kid, you didn't want to go to New Haven because it was an all-black community. It's never been more than 22%. It was a crime-ridden community. It has probably the lowest crime rate in Macomb County. It's been fighting an uphill battle my whole life. Okay? Now, so here's the choice. Do we become a stop on the map for medical marijuana? Or do we maybe toe the line and continue to fight to change the identity that everyone else puts on us? I mean, we are certainly at a crossroads. We are certainly at a crossroads. Do we become a continued bedroom community? Or do we take on another identity that we may or may not want? If someone on the board sees fit, a motion's in order. And if not, you can stand pat, and doing nothing has the same effect.
I guess I have a comment before we do a motion. You know, I was on the committee as well as 2 of the other trustees, and was there one, or actually no, it was just me and, oh yeah. So I just want to, you know, I want to say I think, you know, maybe the timing right now isn't right. Maybe it is in the future. Who knows? Just because of the results of the committee right now doesn't mean that it's forever off the table. But I think right now we're, to President Dilbert's point, you know, we're making a lot of progress, and I think that you know, especially with neighboring the neighborhoods that are going up with Lombardo and hopefully the 47-acre parcel that we'll be talking about later. And I believe there might be another builder that might be starting up soon. You know, I think these are all really great things that are happening for the village. But I think the one other important item is the work that the planning committee is doing with the zoning ordinance. I think that the zoning ordinance is very, very important to have a solid foundation before we take on any type of major development like that. We all have heard the stories about the issues that were had with Dollar General, and you know, there was a lot of maybe variations, deviations that had to be taken care of just to make sure that we could even get Dollar General in place. And that otherwise should have been a pretty cut and dry business, you know, coming into the village. You know, it shouldn't really have been that much work to get that established. With the medical marijuana, it is an unknown for us and for every community at this point within Michigan. You know, I will definitely say I walked into the meeting being in favor of the 4, but then hearing the perspectives of those in attendance and others on the committee. You know, to me, it just seemed like maybe the timing right now, in this very moment, just isn't right. And so I hope, you know, maybe in the future, when we see how Lennox Township and some of the other neighboring communities have actually handled it and taken care of it, you know, maybe it's something that we can revisit if we decide to, but at least right now, Lennox Township, they have received 55 applications. They are completely swamped. They said they almost missed the deadline to be able to get the ballot out for they have like a mid-year election coming up, I think in May. They are talking about needing to hire somebody just to be able to go through the mounds of paperwork that they have. They have an entire filing cabinet that's devoted just to all the applications. Granted, there is a lot of application money that they have received, so they can afford to hire somebody for the purpose. But they're so swamped and overwhelmed, they can't even take the time to train or even go out and do the interviewing process. You know, I think for our small village, just to me, that scares me that, you know, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of things that we just don't really have in place at the present time. And so hopefully, you know, maybe in the future, we'll see, but at least right now, I just don't feel like it's the right time. So just wanted to share my opinion.
Thank you.
I also want to thank the medical marijuana committee for taking the time and the effort to go through and find all the facts and present something of value. I'm personally not against it, but I still believe that, as I said last year when we brought this up, that I believe this issue belongs on a ballot and not in front of council, so I still maintain that.
Any others? If someone so wishes, a motion is in order, or you can do nothing. No. No.
I make a motion to adopt the committee's majority vote to not pursue the 5 streams of businesses pursuant to medical marijuana. It essentially opt out at this point in time.
To adopt or accept?
To not pursue the 5 streams of business.
Right, but what are we doing with are we accepting them or adopting them?
His motion was to accept the committee's recommendation.
I thought you said adopt.
Make a motion to accept the committee's majority vote to not pursue the 5 streams of business pursuant to medical marijuana, essentially opt out.
And you want that wording in there, essentially opt out?
I think
There's a big difference.
Can you opt out? I'll make a motion to opt out. Or not?
Oh, maybe you can't opt out. Or
You're already out.
We'd have to create like
You have to opt
do nothing, we're still out.
Okay, all right, we're gonna leave it at that. So not essentially opt out.
a second.
Is it opt-out or not?
It's to do
We're
nothing.
accepting the results of it.
So are you withdrawing your motion? No, you're making a motion.
No, right? Because that essentially means we do nothing.
No, none of the medical marijuana facilities can occur under state statute unless an ordinance is adopted. So actually, no action. This is the same.
So we don't have to have action.
No, we don't have to have action. That's what it says. Standing pat.
You could even receive and file.
That's what I was.
Receiving files better than.
Okay.
Then
So,
I rescind my motion.
Okay, good.
okay, we're going to receive and file the committee's recommendation. Item E, fireworks. It has been brought up again that Lennox Township, I think it's going before their board, and the village partnered to host the fireworks again this year. I think last year it cost us each $4,000. Lori, what's the timing of, or are you guys on the schedule? Are you still planning the Rocket Fest?
We've been waiting to hear about the fireworks before we did
Never wait on that.
But some things take reservations and money ahead of time that are non-refundable.
Yeah.
So, and as a small 501c3, we don't have that kind of money that we can't not refund.
Yeah, July 21st.
Yeah, it's usually the third Saturday in July is what we had set up, so it would be the 21st this year.
Because we made contact with the fireworks company already, and we have reserved that.
I'm not sure, you guys dealt with the fireworks company.
Yeah, I'm just trying to verify the date of the Rocket Fest.
Oh, yeah, it's always the third Saturday in
If
July.
it's the third Saturday, it's the 21st.
Yeah.
21st, thank you.
Yeah.
Is that outside of the window of the lounge?
No, it's not, because it was out, last year, it was third Saturday, also. And so we're still within that. So, what I'm asking is that we continue to support the firework show in conjunction with Lennox Township, who will split the cost with Lennox Township like we did last year.
And do we need to mention their 501c3 or 4 in our motion?
Nope, it has no bearing on it. It's just that it's going to be in conjunction with Rocket Fest, and I think the question was, I think there was some rumors that Rocket Fest may not happen. And with that being said, then we were going to move it up closer to the 4th of July.
Right, we were trying to figure out that date, I guess, if you guys were needing to move it forward or not. You know, but that you would need to contact the fireworks company too to see if they're available that week, that and that. So.
Okay. So they are available, and they have penciled in the 21st of July as their date.
I've not talked to them, you guys.
No.
Oh, they have 21st. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They are on board for the 21st.
Good.
So are you on board for the 21st?
Yes, we can do the 21st.
Okay.
That's
the question.
Yes.
Okay, with that being said, what's council's pleasure?
I make a motion to allot $4,000.
And it comes out of Parks and Rec.
Yeah, $4,000 from Parks and Rec towards the Rocket Fest firework production in conjunction with Lennox Township.
Second.
You can word it however.
Yeah, it's the New Haven Lennox fireworks. Did I hear support?
Yes.
Been properly moved and supported that we partner with Lennox Township for the annual fireworks display on July 21st.
Do we know for sure that it was 4,000?
Yes, it was 4,000.
Okay.
Yes.
I had 5,000 stuck in my head, so.
Uh,
I had 5,000 stuck in my head.
No, we had budgeted 5, but it came in,
Oh, okay.
yeah, at 4.
And then you said they're available, you did already check the exact cost, what it's going to be for them?
No, we don't have,
I mean, inflation or whatever the heck. I don't know.
yeah, thank you, stand up back there. We don't have an exact cost, but for a similar display like we had last year, we assume it's gonna be in that same neighborhood of $4,000.
We'll bring the contractor and get it.
Yes. Yes, we talked on that already. Any questions on the motions? Roll, please.
Trustee B?
Yes.
Trustee Crowley?
Yes.
Trustee Myerson?
Absolutely.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Eziak?
Yes.
Trustee Primer?
Yeah.
President Silver?
Yes. The Yo engagement agreement for 2017-18 budget, we contacted them. They are
16, 17.
okay, whatever it is.
Council had asked for last month that we contact them and ask him if we can get a 5-year extension. We did contact him, and he is putting that forward to his supervisors, and we should have a letter shortly. So that was just an informational thing for you guys to know that.
The 47-acre parcel. It's out there in limbo. We've extended our purchase agreement at least once, and I guess I need to know what council's pleasure on that parcel. And I think, Steve, stand up and give us an update.
So essentially, the update is that we got all the plans for the sewer, what needs to be put in. We presented it to multiple different engineering companies, and we're coming back with a price per linear foot for development of between, on the reasonable end, about $670 per linear foot, and on the unreasonable end, about $1,200 per linear foot. In order for it to make sense, with the appraised values being around 250, they need to get the development and purchase price to a point that's like right around $25,000 a lot. At $700, it's at $28,000 just for the development. We're so close to being within the threshold with the appraised values. They're shopping 2 more developers, which were suggested within this week. And they're just asking for, I mean, I know we've had a couple extensions, I completely get that, but they're just asking for an extension until May's Village Council to be able to shop a couple more developers. And I think they've talked to like 9 at this point. Just really trying to get that development cost and be able to build this summer, so. And unfortunately, Grant is on vacation, so I'm
And I bring this to council because, like I said, it's tied up with one developer, and just in case you wanted to maybe put it on the market and just open it up. See if there's other developers out there.
If we did that, I mean, we'd still come to council next month anyway, and
Yeah.
just, I mean, we can't sell it without coming to council.
But I'm not gonna keep giving extension with no end in sight. So I'm just sharing with you, how it's going right now. And, so if you have any other ideas and thoughts, we can give them another extension, or we can snatch it back and put a for sale sign on it.
Have there been inquiries? I mean, not offers, not formal offers, but have there been any?
No. No.
Do we know definitely we'll have an answer by May?
Yeah.
Okay, then let's wait till May. Sidewalk repairs. We had discussed last month about, we did the Pager study on sidewalk. It was a rolling study. And we've had some discussions on how to attack this. Sandy and I have really had some discussions. What I think we're going to do, what I'm going to recommend, because this is all new and we really don't have the pieces in place to attack the whole village for sidewalk repairs. We're going to get out and mark them, but we're going to send a letter out to every resident of the village explaining what's happening, the process. We're going to piggyback off the flyer that is distributed by the city of Sterling Heights and make it useful to us, and inform all the residents of their requirement to maintain and repair the sidewalks that are in front of their homes, and particularly the slabs that are marked, they'll be marked in orange, that they have a responsibility to repair those. And they're going to be given the balance of this year to make those repairs. And then by next spring, we will have a program in place. Sandy?
Well, we have a lot of issues that happen. It's basically, we don't have a accounts receivable program at all module to be able to take care of all this invoicing and everything that might happen in the village. We still have to sit down and brainstorm all the stuff that frameworks that we have to do to deal with this. Are they going to be, how are we going to figure out how many slabs one person gets? How are we going to keep that in track? I mean, we have nothing in place to even track any of this, to take care of, make sure that the residents are not getting overcharged or undercharged to take on this thing. We have to decide if we're going to be having them do it, or we are going to do it, or how we're going to fund it, or there's a whole bunch of variables that we have to come up and sit down and brainstorm before we can even tackle this. And we foresee that's not gonna happen this year, so we'd like to start informing and then start figuring out how we're gonna take care of this and make sure that the village gets, get the sidewalks taken care of where it needs to be, the worst case scenario for sure. The phase rating was, I think the ones were 4 that we were looking at, and
Yeah, 4 or worse.
and 4 is considered fair 4. So we'll be looking from there to see if we can, what we can do with the village.
A rough estimate based on the village hiring a contractor and then building out the individual homeowners. I think our rough estimate submit was 230, 250, yeah. $230,000, which we have that we could, pay up front. And then we would collect it back from the homeowners. I mean, we had thought about giving them 30 days to pay it, and if it's not paid by a certain date, then we just roll it to their taxes. So as far as the collection, but just tracking it and keeping and
If we use,
right now, we honestly would be totally overwhelmed with it.
if we use Act 51 money, we have to replace it, we have to go back to the state too, if we go that route also. So we gotta figure out where we're gonna get this money from, what are we gonna use too. Yeah.
But the last statement I didn't hear.
When I meant Act 51 money,
Yes,
if the residents pay back, we have to pay back to the state.
yeah, it goes back to the
Yeah,
activity.
so I mean, that's a lot of bookkeeping that we have to deal
Yes.
with. So we have to figure out how we're gonna do this. There's a lot
Yeah,
of
but
variables
we have to
we have to
recently
figure
do
out.
that in Lori Cole from the state.
Yeah.
That we could use that 51 money to front it, and then we would, it would all have to be paid back.
So when are the sidewalks actually gonna get marked so that residents know what
As soon as
slabs?
the weather becomes, when I woke up this morning, I had snow on the ground. And I'm sure you did too.
Yeah. Well, I'm just curious if they're gonna have enough time to be able to make their plans to
Yeah.
replace slabs.
I would say before the end of, sometime in May, we should be out to have them all marked. Plus, that gives the frost a chance to get out of the ground, because some of these slabs that have lifted will settle back down, and we don't want to mismark something. Because, besides the actual condition of the concrete itself, but you can have those trip hazards. And I think our ordinance calls for like a 1-inch lift as a trip hazard, or, yeah, I think it's 1 inch or 2 inch. 1 inch? Yeah. Give everything a chance to settle back down, and then we'll get out and we'll mark out the sidewalk. Just looking at the pager map, the rolling assessment showed with no bad spots in Decorah, only a couple areas in Amherst.
Somebody marked some Amherst.
Amherst is all marked up, yeah.
I think our homeowners went through and marked
I
us.
was just gonna bring that up. It's all marked up.
Yeah.
So,
Because the tripping hazard going into our mailbox.
What color are they using?
Orange.
And that's why we shouldn't be, that goes back, we shouldn't have anything to say so with the sidewalks within the associations.
And I think that's why they did it, because they were going through to fix our
Good.
association.
Let's take that off our map. Good to know. But that's the plan, we're gonna send out a letter and just informing the residents and, and I'm sure some will take care of it
It'll be up to the resident to replace it
this year.
this year. Is there any way we could reach out to, without having to do tracking and paperwork, and just reach out to a construction firm or a couple and say, how many squares would you have to get contracted for to give us a bar? And in the letter, we could tell the residents, if we get 100 squares, we can go with this company and they'll cut us a deal.
I'm sure we can do that.
That way, it's on the resident to pay it, they can still get a deal.
They can contract with that company and
Yeah, so if we could do that, reach out to, and maybe you could recommend some companies,
a couple companies.
and just to get the available information so we could tell the residents, hey, we got such a deal for you. It's kind of work it out. Does that sound good?
And that's pretty much how we were gonna do it from a village standpoint. We were just gonna bring in one contractor. to it. And that way we know it's done right, and they would regrade it, reseed it, and, restore
But
it.
if the residents come in and say, yeah, I want my 2 squares,
Yeah.
they have to commit to it. They have to prepay it. And then that way, we're not on the hook for anything.
Right, certainly.
Yeah, so.
Okay. But that's the game plan right now, but we will contact some contractors, because there are some out there that's pretty much their bread and butter, is that small flat work,
Yep.
you know?
And if they, the minimum, if they can get 100 squares,
Sure.
cut a deal, but the resident has to commit to it and prepay
Yep.
to get it done. Maybe.
Okay, moving on. Unfinished business. Oh. I'm sorry, I have to look at the regular agenda every now and then.
I'm like, well, we're done.
Sorry about that. Payment of bills.
I move that we pay the bills in the amount of $233,092.55.
Second.
It's been properly moved and supported that we pay the bills in the amount of $233,092.55. Any questions on the motion? I have one statement, and we should go.
Should we have a break?
You know, I'm gonna put a tether on her. There's a bill in the packet, and I don't know if it would be in that or would it be in the consent agenda,
Which one is it?
for the tile work at the senior center.
It's probably in that number.
Okay. The tile work at the senior center costs $2,800. Well, I don't need you now. It's being funded with donations, but I'm just, I just had to remind myself that it's more than $2,500, which I can approve without council approval. But because it's $2,800, even though it's being funded with, private donations, I decided to put it in the packet and bring it to council so you know, so there's no question about it. So there's a $2,800 tile bill in the packet that is not being paid for with taxpayer money. Question on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Colvin?
Yes.
Trustee Lee?
Yes.
Trustee Morrison?
Yes.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Hezia?
Yes.
Trustee Pridmore?
Yes.
President Milford?
Yes. Madam Clerk.
Just have the items in by April 25th, so I can get your agenda on a timely manner. Thank you.
Treasurer Wizard.
Total village assets were $2,440,758.81. Remember the spring debt got paid last month, so that's so low.
Make a motion to receive and file the treasurer's report.
Been properly moved and supported that we receive and file the treasury report. Questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Unfinished business. The village manager was on the agenda last month. There was a request to submit recommendations and suggestions, and I think only one trustee did. And I just have an obligation to make sure that things are carried forward. And I don't know what your intent is, as far as action on the village manager. But it's just my responsibility to make sure that it doesn't fall off the face of the earth.
Yeah, we only received one response with the top priorities, so if you guys are still in favor of moving forward with this, if you can send the priorities, and I guess we'll revisit next month. Or if you guys decide that you don't want to move forward with it, we can talk about that now.
And I'll just say for the one trustee that did send the priorities. Those were built into the RFP already.
But that is in order of like just,
Sure.
just different priorities for me.
What if we have no priorities and we're not gonna micromanage the guy?
Send me an email saying as such.
That means we could just post the RFP. Did we make the changes when we had talked about salary? Did we
Yeah.
plug those numbers in?
We were waiting until today's meeting to do so,
Okay.
so that we could actually get I was waiting to get the top priorities from everybody so that we could make sure it was all baked in.
Okay, so are we satisfied that top priorities that are going to be submitted have been submitted? Are we satisfied? Anybody else want to submit anything?
Was there anything that anybody wasn't satisfied with in the one that we received? Everybody agree with it?
Have we agreed on a range?
We did two meetings ago.
Yeah. The Ways and Means.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I believe we did at the Ways and Means. We had
Yeah,
a
and then we
range, and
presented
then we also
council.
discussed it at the workshop
Yeah, and council.
and at council.
But the numbers I was hearing was still bouncing all over the place.
I think we pretty much narrowed the range. We can go back in the minutes, but I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I feel like it was like 78 to 82 or something like that. Something, I mean, we can go back and number the minutes, but I'm pretty sure we narrowed it down.
Yeah.
Plus benefits, plus.
Right.
It's all included, yeah.
That'd be in the last month's minutes too, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean,
I don't think we discussed it last one.
if you're,
No,
are you prepared?
Not for this meeting, not this month. What we'll do is I'll update the RFP with the salary range based off the conversation here that everybody's in alignment with the top priorities and that we do already pretty much have it baked in. I will update the RFP and then we'll bring it to the next meeting for a formal vote.
Okay.
Can you forward us a copy of the email just for review and then we can discuss it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the top priorities, whatever they were discussed, we agreed with at the last meeting. Because it seemed like everybody was just kind of putting out anything and everything.
I think yours is the one that
We need a complete, done RFP.
Yep, I'll have that for us at the next meeting. And I will also email it ahead of time as well.
New business. Mr. Mason, can we get a planning update? Are you?
Sure. So the last meeting that we had, last Tuesday, we received a number of ordinance updates. I was just going to try to pull it up really quick here to cover which ones we had received. There was some of the updates that we had received from was in regards to just wording updates. So for example, they tried to the Macomb County Planning and Economics Group, they tried to standardize some of the verbiage that was being used. For example, in some places, you'd see village engineer, and then in other places you'd see village engineering consultant, building administrator, and then I don't remember what the other term that they were using. But we have the administrative Article 25. Article 20 for special land use, Article 16 for PUDs, we have the signs ordinance, ponds, transient and temporary amusement activities, off-street parking, site plan review, and site condominium regulations. Those are all the ordinances that we've already received at the planning level to review and comment on. So we have, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks to come back with comments from the planning commission, and then we will be we'll have all the updates presented to us at the next meeting, and then as long as we all approve of it, we'll be then bringing it to council at the next month's meeting. So for May. So we'll have a nice chunk right off the bat. And the site plan review process and the administrative process for the ordinance, it's a lot of information. It's a bulk of information. The packet that we received last month was a lot of paperwork to go through. So we've been reviewing it. I think we have a lot of comments from most of the committee members, and we'll be also then presenting again in May. So we'll be able to go through that. After May's meeting, and we go through those ordinances, I think the rest of them are going to be probably pretty quick to go through. They're a lot shorter. So that's my...
It was interesting. It was probably one of the more interesting planning meetings I've been to in years. It just seemed with the conversation and the direction, it was, yeah.
It's exciting to see the changes that are
something that is long overdue.
Yeah.
Long overdue.
And I would definitely also request, I mean, anybody on council, you all have access to E-Code 360. I can send out an email if it makes it easier with the list of the ordinances that we're reviewing. But if there's something that's been, kind of nagging you that you really think we need to update on that, let us know, because now's the time. We're already going through it, and we're already trying to make the updates. So I already reached out to Trustee Vanderkerk in regards to code enforcement. If there's things that we're experiencing with code enforcement that the ordinances just aren't clear enough or don't make sense, let us know, because now is definitely the time to update it.
Mr. Haziak, you guys didn't meet last month.
No, we didn't meet, but we are just putting together kind of the things we talked about last meeting. And then we're obviously putting together just the dates for all the key events this year, everything that goes on within the village. Upcoming, we've got May 28th is the Memorial Day Parade, and June 9th is River Days. So those are upcoming. Everything else we're working on right now, and it will be posted on the new Parks and Rec website and the village website as soon as we get them. Easter egg hunt went really well. So
I understand that. I couldn't make it this year. I was a little bummed out because my grandson had a birthday party. And I hear it was quite a turnout. Good. New business, planning commission appointment. We had 2 applicants for the planning commission. And I am recommending to council that we appoint Steve. Somebody say his last name for me.
Vitalik.
Huh?
Vitalik.
Vitalik? Okay, I trust you. Steve Vitalik to the planning commission. And he would serve out the balance of the term that was held by Akers. Yes.
Which is when is the balance due on that? When would he serve?
I would have to look at the list. I don't have it with me.
Make a motion, we appoint Steve Vitale to the planning commission.
Second.
Been moved and supported that we appoint Steve Vitale to the village planning commission. Any questions on the motion?
Yeah, I know in the past for appointments to committees and whatnot, we have heard from the individuals over there. Are they in attendance?
I forgot to invite them. That's my fault. I accept full responsibility for that. I did invite him and the other applicant to the planning commission just to see what they were getting into. And I meant to inform Steve of my choice, and I totally forgot to invite him. But I'll make sure he's here next month. Any other question on the motion?
Did you get support?
Yes.
Oh.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carried. There was a conversation, and I'm just going to touch on this because the treasurer, and she answered it perfectly when the question was raised, and I just want to let the council know, the question was raised because there was a recent bond refinance done in Lennox. And the response is that we have no bonds that are callable. term that's used in a bond is eligible to be refinanced. This North Gratiot Interceptor was not bonded as one big bond. There's multiple.
4 in
Yeah.
New Haven.
Okay, and so some bonds that may pertain to Lennox don't pertain to New Haven, and the dates and the timing, and it all varies. Now, we did receive a savings last year of approximately $300,000 when the county was able to refinance some bonds. I think in talking to the treasurer, she informed me that we have a bond that's coming up in November that could possible.
He's
But
putting
here-
a quote together, and his exact words to me, and I realize $100,000 is a lot to the village, but if it's not a savings of $100,000, they won't even consider it. So he has to put the quote together of what the potential savings would be, and if it doesn't hit that $100,000 threshold, they don't even bother.
And I talked to Bruce, I forget his name, at the Drain Commissioner's office, he's their finance guy. And he's constantly looking at these. But here's the biggest remaining obstacle that the village has, is that if our audits for those years where those bonds are callable or not up to date, they can't refinance them. If the audits have not been submitted to the state of Michigan, they cannot refinance that bond. So we could conceivably have a bond come up that is eligible, and there could be a better rate out there, and there's nothing they can do about it if that audit is not in place. And I say that to continue to emphasize, and I put in the call to the auditor today to emphasize them the need to get these audits done. With that, call from the floor.
Danny Thomas, President. Can I still touch on the village manager thing?
Sure.
Okay. Really? That's gonna be a real hard sell. We just got a Dollar General in, which is cool. We lost the paintball place. We're praying for an Aldi. And, okay, we got some houses coming in. Even if we had 100 houses coming in, the protocol is still basically the same. I don't see how you can justify spending the money for a manager. Sorry, we're looking for money for the roads, for the sidewalks, and yet we have a prime opportunity dropped in our lap, and you're gonna turn it down? Meaning with the facility, you're talking 5 licenses, one area, easy peasy, out in the middle of nowhere. The people in the ivory houses don't even see it, and you're gonna turn it down with a possible 1%, 1.5% from a dispensary. You scoff at that, that's more than a bank gives you. And you want us to dig in our pocket for a manager? I'm sorry, that, I would have to vote no on that. Thanks.
Coughlin.
That comment sparked me, Robert Pennell. I hope that you think about just killing this issue, make an ordinance that we don't have it. Otherwise, it's going to obviously come up meeting after meeting, every time there's a dollar needed, that this is what we should be resorting to bring in more funds to the village. And I think that the housing is the most important thing that will come to this village, and keep this a bedroom community. That's where your money's going to come from. That's where the cash is. It's not an industrial. So I hope you guys just kill the issue so that you can move on without this being an everyday discussion throughout the community. If it gets put to bed and it dies off of our Facebook pages and being a target, because exactly what you said, President Dilbert, that the image of the village of New Haven it's always taken hit. Now for me, I love the place. I like it the way it is. I like it small. I like that I know everybody. I like my kid knows everybody. I like it the way it is. And I hope it keeps growing with families. Thank you.
Good evening to everyone. I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Alan Staten, and I'm actually the pastor of Mount Calvary Missionary Baptist Church. I don't know if any of you all remember that church, but 8 years ago, I addressed this body, and we were putting together some efforts to do something about the building over on Victoria Street, 58900. It's down the street from the train station. Well, our efforts at that time didn't kind of gain any momentum, but I just wanted to readdress the council today and let you all know that by the grace of God and by our prayers and from some support from the community, we are in the stages of getting with a contractor so that we can so that we can put a new roof on that building and put some windows in it and put the doors on it so that we can begin to make some progress and change the complexion of what people see out there. So I just wanted to bring that to the council since I did address it some years ago. I wanted to make sure that we readdressed it and let you all know that we are definitely moving in a positive direction.
That's the black building that's down Victoria. The building that's on Victoria, just before you get to Clark.
Down from the...
27th, right out.
Yeah.
Yeah, between Kincaid's and house on 27th and George.
Just want to make sure I was in the right location.
That's the one.
So it's not functional right now, you guys are going to be trying to make it.
That is correct.
That's great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Very good.
Call from the floor. At this time, we're going to go into a closed session and we will return hopefully pronto.
Will there be any motions after? Just for the video?
There should be no motions. Yes. No. And then we still have a call from the table to address, but there's no motion at the table. So. And I need a motion to.
I made a motion to go into closed session at 8:28.
Do we have to say why we're going to closed session?
For litigation.
Second.
Been moved and supported that we go to closed session for legal matters. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?